What's happening, good people? We're here recording Macro Dirt Podcast number 8. What do you say, liver lips?
What's up, jackass?
That's strong for this hour of the day, huh? What's going on, dude? Let's dig right into the markets. We had a big VIX melt yesterday. We've got CPI, PPI out of the barn, both benign. Stocks want to rally on that. VIX wants to melt on that. What's your thoughts here, JD?
Yes, I mean CPI ended up being kind of boring, but it was 3% expected, 2.9% is what it came in, and I kind of said this like on a couple of other podcasts, like we're pricing in 6 rate cuts, right? And you had Bostic say yesterday that he's not even considering one rate cut, and Powell is a hawk. And if you think about it, like Donald Trump is saying that like he wants to control the Fed, like he wants to set monetary policy. The last thing Powell wants to do is cut rates before Trump gets elected. Like I think the front end of the yield curve is totally mispriced. Totally mispriced.
Wow.
So twos are at 3.96%. Fed funds are at 5.5. I mean, I think at a minimum, two should be 50 basis points higher, maybe more.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Hey, why is there that disparity? Why is that happening right now? Why are two so depressed versus Fed funds?
Well, part of it is, when we had the carry trade unwind and the VIX explosion to 62 and the whole market dislocation, like the whole yield curve rallied a lot, like bonds rallied a lot.
Yeah.
And it hasn't really given back any of those gains, which is kind of interesting. So stocks are about 4.5% off the lows, 5% off the lows from last Monday. And the yield curve hasn't moved a lot, So the bond market is still acting as if we're going to get a recession out of this, which I'm really not a believer of.
Yeah, the curve has been fun to watch because it keeps failing par, right? It keeps failing flat with the inability to go into positive territory, which leaves it in negative territory with that recession signal. We've already got all the rate cuts priced in, and the yield curve doesn't seem to care about it.
Yeah.
And so, right. So what the stock market is doing is saying, if CPI, PPI are out with no risk, then the coast is clear for rally. Right. And it just feels like we're in that mode where we're just going to put the most people in the most pain, because I still feel like sentiment is really negative. I mean, CNN fear and greed is at 22, extreme fear. And I think the Twitter sphere is all looking down. I think everybody on Twitter is like, okay, there's going to be another wave coming. And while that may come, the timing is just not right for it yet.
Yeah. I mean, we're expecting an attack on Israel, right, from Iran.
For a week now.
So that's a potential catalyst. We have retail sales tomorrow. So retail sales are pretty volatile, and with one exception, they've been pretty strong for the last few readings. If we get a strong retail sales number, that could do it. The market is expecting a 50% chance of a 25 or a 50% chance of a 50 at the September meeting. If we start pricing out that rate cut, I mean, it could get ugly, So
yeah. I suppose, man, I feel like the ugliness happened, JD. I keep looking at the market like, why did we back off, right? We had the yen carry trade blow up. We had the NVIDIA sentiment bubble blow up at the same time while the curve steepened right to zero, right?
Yep.
I look at all three of those things and I look at the tape and I say, okay, the yen carry trade blew up. They made their sales. NVIDIA backed off. The S&P traded to 200-day support. What are we left to sell, right? Like that was the adjustment to that triple whammy, in my opinion. And that's what the tape is saying so far. Now, we may not be done with this pullback, but I think the sort of mode has changed to we better buy the next dip toward the recent low. I really think that that's the way I'm playing it right now. We had that, wild pop in Starbucks yesterday. Can we shit on that company for a minute?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about Starbucks before. Like I got short Starbucks for a trade back about 7 or 8 years ago with that Philadelphia bathroom incident. You remember that?
What refresh my memory? That sounds familiar. What was that?
there was a couple of African American guys that were like hanging out in Starbucks, like, and they got asked to leave. This was in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah,
Like, and then Starbucks came out with their policy that you could just hang out in there for any reason whatsoever and use the bathroom and stuff.
right.
So all the I mean, Starbucks is a terrible experience. The coffee tastes like mongoose piss, right?
Yes.
About 10 years ago, they switched from the Arabica beans to the Robusta beans for their Pike Place roast. The Robusta beans are cheaper. They come from Vietnam. It doesn't taste like coffee. Like, if you want a dark roast, you have to ask for it. Starbucks is basically like a dessert bar now. Like, you get like these $9 like fancy drinks with like umbrellas in them and shit.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. It's a
Well,
terrible experience.
yeah, I feel like it's a woke dessert bar that violates the Bloomberg tall sugary drink code at every turn. You know what I mean? Like you see people walking out of that stuff with nothing short of dessert looking like items. My axe to grind with them is on the holidays. Because if I'm going to buy a cup of coffee from somebody around Christmas time, there sure as shit better be Santa Claus or some reindeer on it or something like that. Starbucks, I remember over the holidays, literally came out with these commie cups that were like anything but holiday looking. And I refused to go in the store ever since then. And that was way back. But what happened was really cool. And, for market purposes, they hired Brian Nicole away from Chipotle Mexican Grill. And if you look at where Chipotle was at $6 when they hired the dude before it went to 70, that's a jockey we should probably be betting on, whether we like Starbucks or not. You know what I mean? Because that's what I think. That's what the market's going to do. Whether we like the coffee, whether we like it or not. Maybe this guy's going to put Santa Claus back on the coffee cups. Maybe this guy is going to bring back your basic black coffee truck, hot coffee that you can get in 30 seconds, right? Who knows what this guy's going to do, but he's going to change the face of Starbucks. And if it becomes this much less of a woke company, it's probably an appealing company, if you ask me. So we'll see about that. That's our diatribe on the Starbucks move. We got to talk about gold, right? It touched the $2,500 mark in D's futures, backed off pretty hard from there. Now, what do you think this back off from 25.75 to 24.50 in a straight line is this morning, JD? Is that just reaction to the interest rate move, or?
First of all, I don't look at the futures for technicals. I look at spot. Yeah. I think spot matters more for technicals. And for spot, the high was around 24.86 a couple of weeks ago, and we're struggling to get back up there. I'm actually, look, I have a core position. I had a trading position and a core position, and I sold my trading position. I am not bullish. I am not bullish. If you look at a chart, like, you've had several attempts to get above 2,500. You kind of have this rolling chart. You have a cluster of DeMarc sell signals. Like, look, like if it busts through 2,500, I'll buy it. But really what I want is a meltdown to like 2,250 or 2,300 and just demoralize all these motherfuckers that have been trying to push it through and like get it like 10% cheaper. Like, that's what I want, So.
I hear that. The getting it through 2,500 is the head through the wall trade. So I like your idea of being flat and spectating here because like a local with a badge, when it goes through the next level, you turn around and buy it again, right? You don't have to worry or think or anything like that or hesitate. My view on gold is still that it's technically in pretty good shape. I have to sort of downshift my gear of thinking when I look at gold, because I'm looking at gold like it's getting you rich slow. It is the technical breakout through 1800 is still in motion. China is still buying. Central banks are still buying. It's just a slow moving grind higher. So I'm not trading it as much as you. I feel like gold is the one position that I kind of sit on and not think about and just make sure that kind of all of the speedometers are checked off for it to be okay for me to stay in motion. So I just have a different pace on it. I'm trading much faster things like NVIDIA here behind the scenes. So gold is like in slow motion for me. One thing that's really interesting, the BCOM chart. Let's have Braden throw that chart up because you were on it a week or two ago saying that we're real close to making a low here. It did just that with a spike bottom and returned to above the recent low from this year. If anyone that's followed me knows that I call those bottoms. I call those out as V bottom, short in duration, steep in price. You can lean on that as a good low. What do you think about the BCom now? What's driving it?
Well, I mean, I know it's good we're going to put the chart up because so people can see it.
Yeah.
I don't think. I still think we're in the middle of a bottoming process. I don't think that was a V bottom. I think we kind of have to scud along the lows here in commodities. The stuff I look at, like there, I have commodities all over my screen during the day, and
Mhm.
there is just waves of selling. I don't know if this is like programs coming from Bridgewater or something like that, but people shit on commodities all day long. It's absolutely incredible.
JD, it's that market hocus pocus where when the interest rate market perceives disinflation, it's green light go for portfolio managers to shit on commodities. It's just there's just no other way about it, right? You look at the interest rate markets, and if they're not screaming, "Oh my God, inflation is a problem," whack the bids and follow with an offer, and they go down.
Yep.
So if we know we obviously we're going to get to a point where everybody gets too short commodities, looking for that never-ending recession that we've never even kind of found mathematically or technically, and then we'll see a big pop out of there. But oil, the price action has been, we got up to 80 and backed off a little bit. That Iran attacking Israel headline is freaking stale as a rice cake. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's not even going to happen. So I don't know what to think about oil now. Copper is holding 9K a little bit. So there's kind of shades of comebacks in the commodity market off the bottom, but certainly not as a trend change yet. But we're going to keep an eye on that because I think we're hot on its trail. That's what I think. There's another chart that I want to talk about while we're on charts here, and that is NVIDIA, which is setting up for a classic bear trap, in my opinion. Now, this is a lot of dot-com bubble muscle memory talking, but what I saw a lot of back then were charts that would have a clear breakdown, and then they'd have a ferocious retracement rally that would be so steep and so fast in price that the bulls are all just like, oh, the game is back on. And then you look back 2 weeks later and all it did was form a lower high. And now everybody's long at that peak again.
Yep.
So I feel like NVIDIA is setting up perfectly for that with the breakdown to the 100-day. And now this $25, 30% move off the lows into resistance. Now, I'm not going to call a top today. I am trading it from the short side up against this resistance level at 120 here. And I'm going to give it a little room to trade through there and put me in a little more pain. I'm going to try to stick with this trade and see if it pans
Yeah,
out.
I feel the same way. I'm short too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're thinking alike. Before we go off market topic, let's talk about one of your favorite axes to grind. What's going on in private equity, JD? Anything interesting?
Well, there's nothing really interesting going on. It's just kind of my hobby horse. Like I kind of rip on it all the time. Like
Yeah.
one statistic I learned yesterday was that the private credit market is now 1.7 trillion in size, which is exactly the size of the junk bond market. It's now as big as the junk bond market.
Wow.
It
And
is.
And
It's
don't we have like
insane.
retail borrowing over $1 trillion now too, like credit card debt or something like that? There's another $1 trillion number that, like, the shock and awe is just getting unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, private credit is really a source of instability, so I would keep an eye on that. But I don't
Okay.
wa- I don't want to blab about this too much. This is
That's
my.
fine. Then let's move right on. Is there anything else in the markets that we should be covering today that we haven't touched on? Um, I feel pretty good that
We
we've
can
got.
talk about Google.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, man? Charts breaking down a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, it's because they're getting hit with antitrust from the DOJ. And there's some rumors that the antitrust remedies could be very severe, like a breakup of the company, like forcing them to sell their AdWords business and taking Google search out of Safari on iPhones and all kinds of stuff. So Google probably has a lot of downside from here. I actually have puts. I have puts about 15-20% lower. So
Well, good luck with that. I'm not touching the stock. I've never had a good handle on it. I just don't. I don't like shorting the internet arm of the U.S. government. So to me, it sounds like the DOJ is going to come after the government for spying on Americans, and I'm just going to doubt that anything comes out of that. So I'll kind of softly take the other side of the Google trade. But what's interesting is that Mag 7 has finally shown like some signs of wobbling. And then Apple came back strong and, kind of pulled it back up a little bit. But there are at least like, the Mag 7 chart and the Mag 7 stocks individually like look like they've put a little bit of a top in. So it might be interesting to see if that is the continuation or that leads the continuation of this pullback. Because if we don't crack them, we're not going to get the S&P down to the 200-day again or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that's really something that I'm hoping for. I would love to see people get bearish on another dip to the 200-day and, see some capitulative stuff and agnostic selling, and then you can buy the S&P again. Just because that's kind of what the price action is still telling me. I don't know if this bear is just if this bull market is done yet. So let's go off topic. We got a lot of stuff, current events to touch on. Let's lead with one of our more fun foot in kind of politics. We got the Musk-Trump Spaces call the other night, which was kind of interesting. There was a big delay. There was a DDoS attack on it. And then they came back strong and started it like 40 minutes later. And it was a great candid conversation between, two American behemoths, no matter how you look at it or what you think of them. And it was candid enough to make both those guys sound really smart and really human to me. So it was interesting to see the left's reaction to it about how the whole call was a disaster and Trump was rambling or whatever. But that's just to show that they're completely petrified of the guy. What'd you think of that, JD? Anything?
I listened to clips of it. I was impressed. I mean, we learned some things. We learned some things about the assassination attempt, which we didn't know before.
Yeah.
Trump had that line. He was talking about his ear, like about how his ears bleed a lot. I thought that was pretty funny.
Oh, they bleed ferociously.
But I think Elon Musk, after the assassination attempt, genuinely has a lot of respect for Trump. Like, he has a lot of respect for Trump because of how Trump behaved during that assassination attempt. I don't know if you remember this, but Elon Musk, like after that happened, he went on Twitter and he's like, I am voting for Trump in 2024. Right.
Yeah. That, he's clearly there, and it sounds like he's got an axe to grind.
And by the way, like you said, all the photos of this event are like, when was the last time you saw that Trump photo at the assassination attempt at the Pennsylvania rally? Like, they're gone. Like, I did a Google search last night to see if they would show up, and they do show up if you do a Google search, if you do like a Google image search. But I haven't seen these images on Twitter or searching around or anywhere else. So
it's such a sign of like, guilt and fraud on the establishment side that they have to change this event if you go to Chat GPT and type in what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania on that date, that the assassination attempt, it says that there was a conflict between Trump supporters and local authorities. That's what it says. And it's the creepiest thing to read because the thing spells out right in front of you. Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, the AI is lying to my face. And then you go search Google and you look up assassination attempt and it comes up with JFK's assassination attempt, the assassination attempt on Reagan. They are trying to memory hold this event. It totally looks like they gave Biden one chance to do something. He chose to try to take out Trump. He failed, so they got rid of him. And what the wildest thing is, I listened to Dave Smith on Tucker Carlson, and he makes a great point. 2 weeks later, we're talking about the Last Supper at the Olympic opening, right? Like, we're not talking about the Trump assassination attempt anymore. And Dave Smith's point was like, come on, everybody. Let's not get off of the main topic here, that there was an assassination attempt on a presidential front-running candidate. And he made a great comment that is like made so much sense to me, is like, rage is a finite resource. Outrage is finite. And if you start poking your outrage at the Last Supper, you forget about the outrage over the assassination attempt. And so I thought that was a really salient point. And Dave Smith, that guy, he's a comic, by profession. And he's like one of the most tactically, politically sharp guys I've ever listened to in my life. So that was
All
a
right,
cool
so
combo.
so let's talk about Kamala in the magazine covers.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Braden, you know what to do.
yep. Put the covers up.
Put the cover up.
She's on the cover of Time,
Yep.
her moment, and she's on the cover of The Economist. What do we say about The Economist cover? It is the biggest contrarian indicator in the
Ever.
world of
Ever.
all time. And Time is up there too, right?
Yep.
Like, so, if you've been paying attention to my newsletter, I said after the assassination attempt, I said, this is peak Trump.
Peak Trump.
I said that on the podcast. I actually
Yeah.
said that on the podcast. I said, this is peak Trump. He's going to lose the election. Well, we are now at peak Kamala with the Economist cover and the Time cover, right?
And how fast did they switch that, right? That is the power of propaganda, right?
I mean, Trump had the best 2 weeks of his political life, and Kamala had the best 2 weeks of her political life. They are not going to be able to keep her under a blanket until the election. She's going to have to go unscripted. She's going to have to answer questions, and people are going to see that she's an empty suit,
Yeah, she's the most unimpressive person you've ever seen in politics. And as soon as she opens her mouth, that becomes like widely apparent to like every housewife or everyone in America just goes, oh, like every time Kamala says something. So it's really freaky. And then she goes and picks this utter fraud as a running mate for VP, Tim Walz from Minnesota, right? An utter fraud of a politician. Now, in about 2 days after picking him, the internet scrubbed this guy who basically really nobody knew too much about. And to prove that all of this popularity is a psyop, you look at Walz's record, and just off the stuff I rattled off the top of my head, he had cops shoot paintballs at people that were outside of their homes past curfew during COVID lockdowns, right? That is salivation over power. Right, paintballing the citizens to get back in their home after curfew is insane. His BLM record is disgusting, right? He kind of helped get him started. His daughter tweeted that they weren't sending the National Guard to get rid of him so that they could keep burning the city down. He claimed he went to war, right? The stolen valor crime is utterly ridiculous. And he's got no investments in the financial markets.
It's
like
crazy.
Get this guy out of here.
No stocks, no bonds, no money market funds, no real estate. He's never owned a stock, a bond, or a house in his entire life.
It says nothing but financially illiterate, right? There's no other way to explain that as he
the
does
most financially illiterate politician of all time. How is this guy? This guy is going to be first in line for financial transactions tax. He is going to be first in line to do that. It doesn't affect him. He doesn't buy any stocks.
Yeah.
He never owned a mutual fund, nothing.
Yeah.
Just he has $330,000 in cash. That's how much he is worth.
What a walking
and he's 60
Nimrod.
years old.
Yeah. And so when that came out that he had no securities positions, I tweeted out that, like, for me, that's a totally disqualifying thing for a politician to have no portfolio for starters. And number two, I'm sorry, but I'm of the opinion that if I were a politician, I would sort of proudly take the Nancy Pelosi trading route and tell everybody to get lost because I'm playing by the rules, rather than, not be involved in financial markets at all. When I look at Nancy Pelosi, I have more respect for her than I do for the guy Tim Walz that doesn't even participate in the markets, or somebody that doesn't trade on inside information if they're allowed to do it, quite honestly. What's your opinion on that, JD?
What, on politicians trading on inside information?
Yeah, which they're allowed to do.
Yeah, I know they shouldn't be allowed to do that. Yeah,
they shouldn't be allowed. But if they're allowed, what would you do?
I've had some people come back at me about Tim Walz and say, look, like, he's a proponent of the Stock Act, which prevents insider trading by politicians. Like, he doesn't want any conflicts of interest. I'm like, you can invest and not have conflicts of interest. Just have a mutual fund, right? You don't have to own individual stocks. Just have a mutual fund. This guy is just a donut.
Yeah, he's a total donut. And to me, it just proves that, everything about their popularity is a complete psyop. When you catch them filling in crowds at plane landings with artificial intelligence, and they get carved up by the internet like within hours of them trying to pull these hoaxes off. It's literally insulting, right? It's literally insulting. So we'll see where this takes us, but it seems like the establishment is really comfortable just putting a couple of warm bodies up there, and that freaks me out. I have to say that. Switch gears, JD. Let's go to the Yankees for a minute. Aaron Judge, hot on the pursuit of a world record here. What are we thinking? 300 home runs.
He's got 299 home runs. These are his
slugger to
stats
do it
this year. He's batting .329 with 42 home runs and 107 RBIs in August.
That's a comeback, right? When after starting off a total stinkburger this year.
Yeah, his April was terrible. I mean, if you take out April, he's probably hitting like 370.
Yeah, seriously, right? Takes him a few weeks to get started, but that's a pretty cool club to be the leader of, right? The 300 club. There's only 160 players in it. He'll be the fastest slugger by like 50 or 60 games to reach 300 home runs, which is really quite a feat. But
well, the thing about that is he's the fastest to get to 300, but he also didn't start playing until he was like 24, 25.
True.
So he's I think he's 31 or 32 now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's not going to break Barry Bonds' record. Like he's,
right.
Because he started so old,
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair, but he's going to have a couple records, man. He might plug a single season record before this is over, right?
Yep.
That'll be cool to see. What other topics are we looking to cover today, JD? Did we touch on everything?
So, I like electronic music and you like rock music.
Yeah.
What is your favorite DJ? Do you even have a favorite DJ?
I actually do. First of all, I'll say that you are the curator of my electronic dance music, right? When I put on something, when I'm going to be writing for a little while or just working and watching markets, I just go to SoundCloud, DJ Stochastics, and pick one, right? And so I don't know who I'm listening to when I listen to you. If I was going to reach for a DJ, I really like Avicii's stuff. And I don't know why, but like he's the one guy that I've only gone back to, and I don't even know the names of his tracks. I know he's got like one super popular track.
Levels.
Yeah, Levels, exactly, which is a really, really hypnotic and really cool dance music song for me. But I like the history of the guy. I kind of like what he was about. I don't like that he had a really, really spooky ending to his life and things like that. But I try to pay tribute to him by listening to more of his music.
Yeah, Avicii, I used to listen to him like 2011, 2012. I mean, it's super high energy stuff. Like I can't work listening to that stuff. I feel like I'm sprinting, but no, I like the more down tempo stuff. If you get a chance, and this is to everybody listening, my favorite DJ at the moment is a guy named Tim Green, who does like down tempo organic house.
Really?
Tim
Okay.
Green is the man. You got to check out Tim Green.
So he'll bring me from 2011 with Avicii kind of more into the common time now. Tim Green right now. Okay. Wait, now let me kind of reverse that question for you. If you're going to grab a rock album or a band that you're going to like, okay, I'm driving down the road in my Vet. I can do some fist pumping here. There's nobody watching. What are you throwing
on? Honestly, I like the hard stuff, man.
Do you?
Like, I like listening to industrial. So like Ministry, Godflesh, Nine Inch Nails, Frontline Assembly, stuff like that. Like I really like if I'm going to listen to rock, like I like the industrial stuff,
So let's pull Trent out of that for a moment because I have an autographed Trent Reznor picture right over.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, really cool one too. I got to see the Wave Goodbye tour, which was supposed to be like their first farewell tour at I forgot what the name of the place is in the city, and it was the first and only time I ever saw Nine Inch Nails, and I was blown away. Like you are clearly in like a tribal club experience when
he's a musical genius.
Without a doubt, and I mean he wrote the soundtrack to what's the Facebook movie?
Social Network.
And to me the soundtrack makes the movie.
Yeah.
And if you know Trent's music and you listen to that movie, you can probably pick out like, hey, wait a minute, this sounds like somebody I know, because his style is his signature style just stands out like a sore thumb. He's unbelievable and without a doubt a genius. Well, that covers the music.
Here's why Trent Reznor is a genius, and then we'll go.
Yeah.
Trent Reznor in 1994 took torture and porn and killing and like all this stuff and turned it into pop music, right?
Yeah.
Like a song like Happiness and Slavery, which is literally just noise. And
Head like a hole.
And it becomes Head Like a Hole, Closer. It becomes like Closer was a number one hit.
Yeah.
I mean, he takes like the darkest subject matter in the world and turns it into pop music that everybody loves. You know,
he did. Yeah. And if you watch his videos, they're as dark as could be.
Oh yeah.
Right. They're like nightmares coming to life on the screen.
Yep.
To touch on one last thing maybe on Trent is that I'm a big fan of cover songs, right? And I love that Johnny Cash covered "Hurt," which was which producer's idea? Who produced? Who's the guy with the beard? I forget. Mark Rubin, right? It was Paul Rubin. What's his name? Rubin. Rick Rubin. Sorry, Rick Rubin's idea to do that. And if you listen to that cover, Johnny Cash singing "Hurt," you were like blown away that you've got this old country western star who's on his deathbed slowly singing a Nine Inch Nails song, and it is emotionally heart-wrenching to listen to. And when you go to the Johnny Cash Museum, there's a great plaque up with a quote from Trent that says, like, when I heard Johnny Cash sing "Hurt," it was like somebody stole my girlfriend. He was like, it was just unbelievable that like he may have done the song in like a better version than I intended it to. And that just blew me away. Yeah, like it's really heavy stuff. Like you read that stuff in the Johnny Cash Museum and you're like, wow, that's fucking heavy. But really, really cool stuff from two great musicians. And yeah, Trent is really high on my list. I'm going to have to spin some 9 Inch Nails today. That's it, man. I think we covered things pretty well today. The S&P right now on quite a recovery. We're like a 35 handle bounce off the lows from 54.40 to 54.75. I mean, this does not feel like a bear market curl over taking place, does it?
No. Nope.
We'll see what happens next week. All right, teachers. Hasta la vagina.
Hasta la vagina. See ya.
Be good.